All right, so get this. Today we are diving into like some seriously cutting edge research.
Oh, cool.
About how we can get more renewable energy on the grid.
Okay.
And I mean, fast.
Wow.
We've all heard about the bottleneck of renewable energy projects.
Yeah.
Like, stuck in line waiting for grid connection, right?
Yeah. It's not just a few projects either.
Right, yeah.
It's a massive log jam.
Yeah.
We're talking almost 1,500 gigawatts of solar and wind power.
Wow.
And over 1,000 gigawatts of battery storage.
Oh my God.
Just waiting for the green light.
So this isn't just an energy geek problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
This stalled progress impacts like everything from economic growth to those ambitious climate goals we keep hearing about, right?
Yeah.
What I found so fascinating about this research paper is that it proposes a solution that at first sounds almost too good to be true.
Right.
Repurposing the existing grid connections of fossil fuel power plants.
It's definitely a bold idea.
Yeah.
And what makes it so intriguing is that it directly addresses one of the biggest hurdles in the renewable energy rollout.
Right.
The need for massive new transmission lines.
Okay, let's break this down.
Okay.
Instead of building brand new transmission lines, we'd basically be building new solar and wind farms right next door to these existing power plants and letting them plug into the grid using the fossil fuel plants connection.
Exactly.
Okay.
The researchers call this surplus interconnection.
Okay.
And they wanted to quantify just how much potential is out there if we take this hyper-local approach. Yeah. Meaning focusing on renewable energy resources within a very small radius around each existing plant.
This is where it gets really mind-blowing.
Okay.
They calculated the potential within a tiny 6 by 6 mile buffer zone around each plant.
Wow.
Honestly, I was skeptical at first. Yeah. How much energy could you possibly cram into such small areas?
Right. It seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But the numbers are staggering.
Okay.
They found a theoretical maximum of over 15,400 gigawatts of renewable energy potential.
15,400 gigawatts.
Just within these small zones around existing fossil fuel plants in the contiguous U.S.
To put that into perspective, the entire current U.S. generation capacity is only slightly larger than that. Are we seriously saying we could almost double our capacity using only these small pockets of land?
Well,
there's got to be a catch, right?
Of course, there are real-world constraints. You can't just slap solar panels down anywhere.
Right.
But that's where this research gets impressive.
Okay.
They didn't just focus on the theoretical maximum. They meticulously accounted for over 50 different exclusion criteria.
Okay.
From land use restrictions and protected areas to terrain limitations and even local ordinances. So
they were aiming for a realistic estimate, not just some pie-in-the-sky figure.
Exactly.
What did they end up with after factoring in all those real-world limitations?
It's still incredibly impressive.
Okay.
Their analysis shows we could realistically add 836 gigawatts of renewable energy right now using this method.
Wow, okay.
And by 2030, that number jumps to 977 gigawatts.
Okay, so maybe not doubling our capacity, but still a monumental increase in clean energy.
Yeah.
And remember, this completely bypasses that massive bottleneck of waiting for new transmission lines.
Exactly.
This approach gets that clean energy online now using the infrastructure we already have.
And think about the timing of this.
Yeah.
Electricity demand is skyrocketing due to everything from the switch to electric vehicles to the growing energy appetite of data centers.
Yeah.
Especially those powering artificial intelligence.
It's almost ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
The push for artificial intelligence could be stalled by our ability to generate clean electricity.
Wow.
I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Some experts predict that AI data centers alone could devour up to 500 terawatt hours of electricity by 2030.
Wow.
At the rate we're going, almost all new renewable energy additions would be gobbled up by just that sector.
Right.
This surplus interconnection idea suddenly seems less like a cool idea and more like an urgent necessity.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's not just about adding more clean energy.
Right.
It's about ensuring we have enough electricity to power the future, period.
Right.
And these 977 gigawatts by 2030 are just what's achievable based on today's renewable energy technology, as costs continue to plummet and efficiency improves, that potential will only increase.
Okay, so we've established the potential is enormous. The real question is, does this make economic sense?
Yeah, good question.
Building all these new solar and wind farms can't be cheap.
Right.
Would it really be cheaper than just running those existing fossil fuel plants?
That's the question the researchers tackled head on. Okay. And their findings are incredibly compelling. Okay. They focused on what they call the crossover point. Okay. This is the point at which the cost of generating renewable energy drops below the cost of running an existing fossil fuel plant.
This crossover point seems absolutely critical. Have we actually reached it for a significant number of plants? Right. Or is this just a future possibility?
You're right. That crossover point is key. Yeah. And here's the good news. Okay. For a surprisingly large percentage of existing fossil fuel plants, that crossover point has already arrived. Okay. For 75% of existing fossil fuel plants. Wow. Solar energy is already cheaper than the variable cost of continuing to run those plants.
That's interesting.
And for wind energy, it's even better. Okay. The crossover point has been reached for 80% of those plants.
Wow. So for a huge chunk of the existing fossil fuel fleet, it's actually more expensive to keep burning fossil fuels than to switch to renewables right now. Yeah. That's a powerful argument.
It is.
Did they look at overall plant averages, or did they get into the nitty-gritty details of individual units within these plants?
They got very granular with it.
Okay.
Their analysis was done at the individual unit level.
Wow.
Factoring in the specific fuel and operating costs for each unit.
Wow.
So this wasn't some back-of-the-envelope calculation. They really drilled down into the data to make sure their findings were accurate.
That's some impressive attention to detail. Yeah. But what about those remaining plants that haven't hit the crossover point yet? Right. Are we stuck waiting for them to catch up?
The researchers projected the crossover point out to 2030, and their findings were, frankly, very encouraging. Okay. By 2030, almost all existing fossil fuel plants will have reached the point where renewables are the cheaper option.
So we're looking at a future where very soon running renewables through these existing interconnections simply makes economic sense across the board. Yeah. It's not even a debate anymore.
That's exactly what the data suggests.
And this has huge implications for how we think about the role of fossil fuel plants moving forward. They essentially become the backup singers in the energy band. Yeah. Only called upon when renewable energy can't quite hit the high notes.
Like a giant clean energy battery standing by just in case.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
This shift in how we operate our energy systems could also mean significant cost savings for power plant owners.
They'd be primarily relying on the cheaper renewable energy for most of their generation and firing up the fossil fuel units only when absolutely necessary.
Sounds like a win for the power system and a win for the environment.
Exactly.
But let's circle back to exactly how much renewable energy we could add through this surplus interconnection approach. Right. We know it's a lot, but can we break it down by region?
Of course.
Where's the biggest bang for our buck?
As we mentioned, we're looking at about 836 gigawatts of renewables today, growing to 977 gigawatts by 2030. Okay. But this potential isn't spread evenly across the country. Right. Two regions really jump out. Okay. PJM, which covers a large area of the Mid-Atlantic and Midwest, and MISO, which spans much of the Midwest and parts of the South. Okay. These regions have the highest concentration of existing fossil fuel plants, and therefore the greatest potential for surplus interconnection.
So these are the areas where we could see the most dramatic shift toward renewables.
It's definitely possible. Okay. And this is particularly relevant for PJM. Okay. They're facing what's called resource adequacy challenges. Okay. Meaning they're struggling to keep up with rising demand and ensure a reliable electricity supply. Yeah. Lots of older fossil fuel plants are retiring. Right. And new capacity additions, especially renewables, haven't been keeping pace.
So they're facing that energy crunch we were talking about earlier, right?
Exactly.
Sounds like this surplus interconnection approach could be a real lifeline for them.
Absolutely. It would allow them to quickly add lots of new renewable generation capacity.
Right.
Using existing infrastructure.
Right.
This could be a critical part
yeah.
of solving their looming capacity shortfall.
Okay, I have to admit, this is starting to sound like a really smart move.
Yeah.
Cleaner energy,
right.
Potentially lower costs, and a more reliable grid.
Yep.
What's not to like?
Well, as with anything,
right.
there are nuances and potential complexities to consider.
Sure.
Before we get into those, though,
okay.
I want to highlight another key finding from this research that I found truly fascinating.
Okay, cool.
The researchers wanted to go beyond just the technical and economic potential of surplus interconnection.
Right.
They actually used a sophisticated computer model.
Oh, wow.
To determine what a truly cost-effective U.S. energy system would look like.
So they used a model that simulates the entire U.S. energy system to figure out the cheapest way to meet all our electricity needs, considering all the different energy sources we have available.
You got it.
Okay.
They used a model called REEDS, the Regional Energy Deployment System, to simulate a wide range of scenarios and identify the most cost-effective pathway to a clean energy future.
That's some serious number crunching.
It is.
What did this REEDS model reveal? Well,
does surplus interconnection play a big role in this least cost energy scenario?
The results were pretty clear.
Okay.
Using surplus interconnection for renewables could provide the majority of the clean energy needed for a least cost energy system in over 35 states.
35 states?
That's a huge portion of the country.
Wow.
Where this approach isn't just a good idea.
Right.
It's the most economically sensible path forward.
But hold on. I remember there was another intriguing finding in this paper.
Okay.
Didn't they identify a group of existing power plants?
Yes, they did.
That are practically begging to be replaced with renewables using this method.
They did.
Okay.
Over 200 gigawatts of existing fossil fuel capacity in the U.S. Is currently operating at very low utilization rates and has extremely high operating costs.
Okay.
These plants are prime targets for replacement using surplus interconnection.
That's a significant amount of capacity.
Just sitting there, barely used.
Yeah.
What makes these plants such good candidates for this approach?
Well, many of them are what we call peaker plants.
Oh.
They're designed to operate only during periods of peak electricity demand.
Oh, okay.
Like the hottest summer days or the coldest winter nights when everyone's blasting their AC, you're cranking up the heat.
So they're essentially the emergency backup generators for the grid?
That's a good way to think about it, because they only run for a small fraction of the time.
Okay.
These peaker plants are often older, less efficient, and a lot more expensive to operate than plants that run more consistently.
How little are we talking here?
Okay.
What percentage of the time are these plants actually running?
In 2023, over 200 gigawatts of U.S. fossil fuel capacity.
Wow.
Sat idle for more than 85% of the year.
So they're essentially sitting there most of the time.
Right.
Costing a fortune to maintain, just waiting for those rare moments when we need a burst of extra power.
Right. And they're not even cheap to run when they are in operation.
Right, right.
The operating costs for this minimally utilized capacity are about $20 per megawatt hour higher.
Wow.
Than for intermediate and baseload fossil plants that run more often.
Okay, I'm starting to get why these peaker plants are prime targets for replacement.
They make a lot of sense.
Not only are they inefficient, but they're also incredibly expensive to operate compared to other fossil fuel plants.
Both from an economic and an environmental standpoint.
Right.
They represent some of the oldest, dirtiest technology on the grid.
No wonder they're at the top of the list.
Replacing them with cleaner, more efficient, renewable energy sources is a no-brainer.
It sounds like we're not just talking about swapping dirty energy for clean energy, but also replacing outdated technology with something modern and much more cost-effective. It's like trading in your clunky old gas guzzler for a sleek electric car.
And by targeting these peaker plants first, we can maximize the economic and environmental benefits of surplus interconnection.
Yeah.
It's a strategic way to get the biggest bang for our buck.
This is all starting to sound like a pretty amazing deal.
It is.
But are there any downsides to this approach? It can't be all sunshine and roses, right?
You're right, of course.
Yeah.
Every solution has its complexities.
Yeah.
Before we jump into those, though,
okay,
I think it's worth taking a moment to appreciate how innovative this research really is.
Okay, preach it.
Haha.
What makes you so enthusiastic about this research?
For me, it's the sheer elegance of the solution.
Okay.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel here.
Right.
We can achieve such impactful changes
yeah.
simply by using what we already have
right.
in a smarter, more efficient, and more sustainable way. It's about finding a path forward that benefits everyone.
We've been so focused on the need for massive new infrastructure projects that we've overlooked the potential right in front of us.
I agree.
Sometimes the best solutions aren't about building something new.
Yeah.
They're about looking at the familiar with fresh eyes.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's not just about the technical aspects either.
Right.
This approach has the potential to bring together a diverse group of stakeholders, power plant owners, renewable energy developers, everyday electricity consumers, policymakers, and create a solution that benefits everyone involved.
So a true win-win-win scenario.
Absolutely.
Tell me more.
Okay.
What's in it for each of these stakeholders?
Let's dive into those benefits for each group.
Okay.
It really is remarkable how this approach has the potential to align everyone's interests.
I'm all ears. Let's start with the people who matter most. The consumers.
Okay.
What's in it for them?
Well, at the top of the list is probably lower electricity bills.
Okay.
As we've discussed.
Yeah.
Renewables are already cheaper than fossil fuels in many cases.
Right.
And that cost advantage is only going to grow.
Right.
By moving toward a system that prioritizes renewable generation, we can drive down the overall cost of electricity for everyone.
And cheaper electricity is always welcome.
Yeah.
Especially in a world where the cost of just about everything seems to be going up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And beyond lower costs, consumers would also enjoy cleaner air.
Right.
Renewable energy doesn't produce the harmful pollutants that come with fossil fuel plants.
Right.
Shifting towards more renewables leads to improved air quality and better public health outcomes for everyone.
So consumers are happy.
Right.
What about the power grid itself?
Yeah.
How does the surplus interconnection approach actually benefit the grid as a whole?
There are several significant benefits to the grid.
Okay.
First, it makes the grid more reliable by diversifying our energy sources.
Right.
We're not putting all our eggs in one basket.
Right.
Making the system more resilient to disruptions.
Disruptions like extreme weather events, cyber attacks, or even those unexpected equipment failures that seem to happen more often than they should.
Right.
Yeah.
A more diverse energy mix helps us keep the lights on no matter what curveballs get thrown our way.
Right, right.
Second, this approach gives us the flexibility to handle that rapidly growing demand for electricity we were talking about earlier as we move toward electrifying more of our economy.
Yeah.
Everything from transportation to heating and cooling our homes. We're going to need a lot more electricity.
Yeah.
Surplus interconnection allows us to add that capacity quickly and efficiently using infrastructure that's already in place.
So we're not just talking about keeping the lights on. We're talking about powering a whole new future.
Exactly.
Okay, so consumers are happy.
Right.
The grid is happy. What about the folks who own those fossil fuel power plants?
Yeah. Good question.
I can't imagine they're exactly thrilled about the prospect of their plants essentially getting shut down.
It's interesting because this approach doesn't necessarily require shutting down those plants completely.
Okay.
Instead, it creates an opportunity for them to evolve and adapt to the changing energy landscape.
Right.
They can diversify their portfolios by incorporating renewable energy assets and generating new revenue streams.
So they shift from being purely fossil fuel power plants to becoming energy companies with a mix of generation sources.
Precisely. They could leverage their existing fossil fuel plants as backup capacity, running them only when needed to fill in the gaps, which still generates revenue.
I see how this could actually be a win for them.
Yeah.
It's about adapting and thriving in a new energy future.
Right.
Not clinging to the past.
Yeah.
Who else benefits from this approach.
We can't forget about the renewable energy developers.
Right.
This approach is a game changer for them as well.
They already seem to have a ton of projects in the pipeline, though, right?
You're right. They have plenty of projects ready to go.
Yeah.
But they're facing those frustrating delays in getting them connected to the grid.
Right.
That's the bottleneck we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Surplus interconnection offers a much faster route to project approval and significantly lowers their costs.
Right.
Because they're leveraging that existing interconnection infrastructure.
So they can move faster and more cost effectively.
Yeah,
so that's a win for them, for sure.
Yeah.
Anyone else we should mention?
Last but definitely not least are the communities where these power plants are located. Many of these communities have historically been heavily reliant on the fossil fuel industry.
Right.
And they face an uncertain economic future as that industry declines.
Absolutely. That's something we need to be mindful of.
It is.
How does this approach help those communities?
It brings much needed investment and creates local jobs, which is crucial.
Yeah.
It also generates tax revenue for these communities and reduces pollution, all while helping them build a more diverse and resilient economy that's not solely dependent on fossil fuels.
It's not just about clean energy and economic growth, then it's about creating a more just equitable energy transition.
It's about making sure everyone benefits, not just a select few.
That's crucial.
And that's what makes this surplus interconnection approach so compelling.
Yeah.
It creates a framework where everyone has a role to play. And everyone stands to gain.
It's like a giant energy ecosystem where everything is interconnected and everyone benefits from a healthy and thriving system.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And the research suggests that with the right policies and collaboration, this could be a real game changer. In our transition to a cleaner energy future.
I'm starting to think so too. Yeah. But let's not sugarcoat things. There have to be at least a few potential downsides or challenges the researchers didn't address in this paper, right?
Of course.
Are there any skeletons hiding in the closet?
You're right. No solution is perfect.
Right.
Let's talk about some of the potential complexities we need to consider.
All right. So last time we were geeking out about this whole surplus interconnection idea.
Right.
The potential is huge, EE.
The economics make sense.
It does.
And there are some serious benefits for just about everyone involved.
Right.
But you hinted that there are some policy changes needed to really make this happen on a large scale.
Yeah, definitely.
What needs to change to get this ball rolling?
The researchers lay out a pretty detailed roadmap of policy recommendations targeting different groups of stakeholders. Because let's face it, getting this done is going to require a coordinated effort from a lot of different players.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So who are the key players in this game and what do they each need to do?
Let's start at the federal level.
Okay.
With the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Okay.
Or FERC, as they're known in the energy world.
Okay.
FERC.
They're the big dogs when it comes to regulating the interstate transmission of electricity.
Right.
And they have a major role to play in making sure this whole surplus interconnection idea works smoothly.
Okay. FERC, the federal overseers of our energy grid.
Right.
What's on their to-do list?
Well, one of their most important jobs is to streamline the approval process for something called surplus interconnection service.
Right.
That's the official mechanism that allows renewable energy projects to connect to the grid.
Yeah.
Using an existing fossil fuel plant's connection.
So basically cutting through the red tape and making it easier for these projects to get approved.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good thing.
You'd think it would be straightforward, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that right now there's a lot of inconsistency in how surplus interconnection service is implemented across different regions of the country.
Right.
It's a bureaucratic mess.
Right.
And that uncertainty makes it harder for developers to plan and finance these projects.
Yeah.
FERC needs to step in and create a more standardized, efficient, and transparent process.
Okay.
It's the same everywhere.
A one-stop shop for surplus interconnection.
Exactly.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
What else needs to happen at the federal level?
Another big one is simplifying the rules around what's called generator replacement.
Okay.
This is basically the process of retiring an old fossil fuel power plant and replacing it with a new energy project at the same site.
Ah, so it's like swapping out that clunky old gas guzzler for a sleek electric vehicle.
Exactly.
But on a power plant scale.
The problem is, just like with surplus interconnection service, the rules for generator replacement can vary wildly depending on where you are in the country. It can be a real nightmare for developers trying to navigate all those different regulations. FERC needs to step in and create a more streamlined, consistent framework that makes sense for everyone.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Clear rules of the road will make this kind of replacement activity much more attractive.
Yeah.
Anything else on FERC's plate?
Yes. A couple more things.
Okay.
They should create some standardized agreements and procedures for transferring interconnection rights.
Okay.
This is to prevent something called capacity hoarding.
Capacity hoarding.
It's when someone claims a spot on the grid for an energy project without any real intention of actually building anything. They're just trying to block others from using that valuable grid connection point.
Ah, like those people who buy up all the concert tickets and then resell them at inflated prices. We don't need that happening with access to the grid.
What's the solution? Well, FERC can create a system that makes sure these interconnection rights are allocated fairly and efficiently. And finally, and this is a big one, FERC needs to push for much greater transparency in the entire interconnection process. That means making data on available interconnection capacity readily available to everyone. Developers, potential investors, the public, everyone.
No more secret handshakes and backroom deals.
Exactly.
I like the sound of that.
You hate to.
Transparency is crucial for building trust and fostering competition.
It levels the playing field and creates a more dynamic and innovative market for renewable energy development.
Okay, so it sounds like FERC has their work cut out for them.
They do.
But the feds aren't the only ones with a role to play here, right?
Right. We also need action at the regional level from the independent system operators, or ISOs. These are the organizations that manage the flow of electricity across the grid in different parts of the country.
So FERC sets the big picture national policies, and then the ISOs put those policies into practice in their specific regions.
Exactly. Think of it as federal guidelines translated into regional action plans. And the ISOs have some critical tasks ahead of them. First and foremost, they need to streamline those surplus interconnection service and generator replacement rules within their specific regions. Translating FERC's broad guidelines into clear procedures that work for everyone in their area.
So they take those national policies from FERC and tailor them to the unique circumstances of their region and ensure the rules are relevant and actionable on the ground.
That's a good way to put it.
The ISOs also need to start thinking
long term and incorporate surplus interconnection into their transmission planning processes.
So when they're planning new transmission lines or upgrading existing ones, they need to consider how those lines could be used to connect renewable energy projects at existing fossil fuel plant sites.
Kind of like planning ahead.
Exactly.
And anticipating where those future connections might be needed.
Right. It's about being proactive and anticipating those future needs instead of always playing catch up. And the ISOs can also play a critical role in raising awareness about these opportunities.
So?
What kind of awareness raising activities are we talking about? They can conduct studies to determine where the greatest potential for surplus interconnection exists within their regions and then make that information readily available to everyone. Imagine a data portal. Or mapping tool.
That shows all the existing fossil fuel plants. And how much renewable energy potential exists at each site.
So kind of like a matchmaking service for renewable energy, connecting developers with power plant owners who have available interconnection capacity.
That's a great analogy.
They could even create a clearinghouse or a marketplace where developers can buy and sell interconnection rights.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, so the ISOs have a big job ahead of them, streamlining processes, planning for the future, and playing matchmaker for clean energy projects.
Who else needs to get involved?
Yeah.
Well, we can't forget about the state level.
Okay.
Public utility commissions, or PUCs, have a crucial role to play here.
Right.
They're the ones who regulate the utilities in each state.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of influence over how those utilities plan for and procure new energy resources.
So the PUCs are basically calling the shots on where our electricity comes from in each state.
It is.
That's a big responsibility.
And the researchers recommend that PUCs require utilities to consider surplus interconnection and generator replacement as key parts of their long-term energy plans.
Okay.
Also known as integrated resource plans. Or IRPs.
Integrated resource planning.
It's basically the utility's roadmap for meeting its customers' energy needs. Over the long term, they figure out how much electricity they'll need, what mix of energy sources they'll use to generate that electricity, how much it will all cost, and how they'll make sure the lights stay on.
So it's a really complex planning process.
It is.
That takes into account a bunch of different factors.
Exactly. And what the researchers are saying is that surplus interconnection and generator replacement need to be important pieces of that puzzle. The PUCs also need to make sure that utilities are actually prioritizing cost-effective renewable energy projects in their requests for proposals or RFPs.
RFPs, those are the documents where utilities say, hey, we need this much electricity. Give us your best offers.
And by specifically stating that they're looking for projects that can utilize existing interconnection infrastructure, the PUCs can encourage developers to focus on those surplus interconnection opportunities.
Makes sense. They're basically setting the rules of the game to make sure that utilities are considering all the options and playing their part in a cleaner energy future.
So we've got FERC, the ISOs, and the PUCs. Are we missing anyone?
We've still got a few more
players to bring into the game. State legislatures can make a big difference by passing laws that require consideration of surplus interconnection and generator replacement in energy planning processes.
So they're taking those recommendations from the PUCs and solidifying them into state law, making them official policy.
Those laws give the PUCs more teeth to enforce these changes. State legislatures can also provide funding to support community-level studies and workforce development programs related to surplus interconnection.
That's a good point.
It's about ensuring that the benefits of this clean energy transition are shared widely and that no one gets left behind.
We can't just focus on the technology. We have to consider the human side of this transition, too.
Exactly.
So we've got the feds, the regional grid operators, the state regulators, and the state lawmakers. Anyone else we need to bring into the fold?
There are two more key groups. The load-serving entities, or LSEs, and the generators themselves.
Load-serving entities, that's a mouthful.
It is.
Who are they?
Think of them as the retailers in the energy world. They're the companies that actually sell electricity to us, the consumers. They buy electricity from the generators, those power plants, and then sell it to you and me. They're the ones sending us those monthly electricity bills.
Got it.
Yeah.
The middlemen between the power plants in our homes.
Exactly.
What do they need to do to make this surplus interconnection thing work?
They have a lot of purchasing power.
Literally.
When they're deciding which energy sources to buy. They should prioritize projects that utilize existing interconnection infrastructure. They should also help educate their customers about the potential cost savings associated with this approach. After all, cheaper electricity is something we can all get behind.
So they need to be smart shoppers and make sure their customers understand the benefits of this new approach.
What about those legacy generators?
Okay.
The companies that own all those fossil fuel plants.
Right.
What role do they play in all of this? They have a huge opportunity here.
Okay.
Instead of seeing their existing fossil fuel plants
right.
as liabilities
yeah.
in a rapidly changing energy world,
yeah.
they can actually monetize
okay.
their existing interconnection capacity.
Oh, okay.
They can either sell it outright
right.
to renewable energy developers,
okay.
or they can lease it out,
okay.
generating revenue from what's currently an underutilized asset.
So they're essentially turning what some might see as a liability in a clean energy future into a valuable asset.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they can also choose to partner with developers to build and operate new renewable energy projects, diversifying their portfolio and creating new revenue streams as the energy landscape evolves.
It can be part of the solution instead of clinging to the past.
That's really the key takeaway here.
Yeah.
This whole surplus interconnection approach is about creating a more flexible, dynamic, and ultimately more sustainable energy system.
Yeah.
It's about finding ways for everyone to work together toward a shared goal.
It's about collaboration instead of competition.
Right.
And recognizing that we're all in this together, right?
I think so.
So we've got all these different players in the game.
Right.
FERC, the ISOs, the PUCs, state legislatures, load-serving entities, and the generators themselves.
That's exactly.
That's a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
It is.
But it sounds like everyone has a pretty strong incentive to make this work.
That's the exciting part.
Okay.
The potential benefits of this approach are so compelling.
Yeah.
Lower costs.
Right.
Cleaner energy. A more reliable grid.
Right.
That it could actually create a powerful alignment of interests.
So it's not just about altruism and saving the planet. It's also good business, good policy, and good for communities.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when you have that kind of convergence of interests, it creates a real force for change.
But even with all those incentives, this is still a massive undertaking.
It is.
It can feel overwhelming to even think about where to begin.
I agree.
So how do we tackle a challenge this big? Where do we even begin?
Well, I think the researchers would say that the first step is simple. Start talking to each other.
Okay.
We need to bring all these stakeholders together and talk about how to make this work.
Right.
What are the challenges specific to each region?
Yeah.
What are the opportunities for collaboration? How do we ensure that everyone benefits from this transition?
So building bridges, fostering collaboration, creating a shared vision for the future of our energy system.
And then we need to translate that shared vision into concrete actions. Pilot projects. Experimenting with different approaches. Learning from our successes and failures. It's not about waiting for the perfect plan to magically appear. It's about taking action and making progress.
It's about being willing to experiment. To take risks and to learn as we go. There's no perfect plan. So we need to be willing to learn and adjust course along the way.
I think that's the only way we're going to make real progress on a challenge this complex. It requires a shift in mindset from a top-down, we have all the answers approach to a more collaborative, iterative, and learning-oriented way of working.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
We're so used to thinking that solutions to big problems require top-down bureaucratic solutions. But maybe what we need is a more nimble, bottom-up approach where we're constantly experimenting, learning, and adapting as we go.
I think that's how real innovation happens. Not from grand pronouncements, but from people on the ground working together, trying new things, and figuring out what works.
And that's what makes this surplus interconnection approach so exciting to me.
Yeah, I agree.
But before we move on, I have one last question about potential downsides. It's a big one. What if this whole surplus interconnection idea is just a distraction from the real work we need to be doing to address climate change?
Yeah, good question.
What if it gives fossil fuel companies a way to stay in the game longer than they should, delaying the inevitable transition to 100% renewable energy?
That's an incredibly important question. Yeah. And it's one that we need to grapple with. Right. Honestly, there's a risk that any approach that involves repurposing existing fossil fuel infrastructure could be co-opted by those who benefit from the status quo, delaying the transition we need to see.
So how do we prevent that from happening?
Yeah, that's the challenge.
How do we make sure that this surplus interconnection idea doesn't become a tool for greenwashing or delaying the inevitable shift to a clean energy future?
That's where strong policy and regulation come in. Oh. We need to ensure that any policies or incentives related to surplus interconnection are structured in a way that prioritizes genuine emissions reductions, not just short-term profits for fossil fuel companies.
So it's not enough to simply embrace this idea. Right. We have to be really smart about how we implement it.
We need to hold everyone accountable. Right. Policymakers, utilities, generators, developers, to make sure that surplus interconnection is a tool for accelerating the clean energy transition, not delaying it.
That's a great note to end on. Yeah. A reminder that while this surplus interconnection idea is incredibly promising, it's not a magic bullet.
It's not.
It requires careful planning, thoughtful implementation, and a commitment from all sides to use it as a tool for real, lasting change.
So we spent a lot of time in this deep dive, talking about the potential of surplus interconnection, how it works, the economic benefits, the policy changes needed to make it happen, large scale.
It's one thing to talk about the potential of an idea.
Right, exactly.
But it's always more exciting to see it, in action.
Yeah. Right. And the good news is there are actually some really fascinating projects popping up around the country. Okay. They give us a glimpse into what this future powered by surplus interconnection could look like.
Okay, cool.
I'm all ears. What are some of the projects that have caught your eye?
One that I find particularly exciting is a project happening in Colorado at the Comanche Generating Station. Okay. It's one of the largest coal-fired power plants in the state, but it's scheduled to shut down in the next few years. Okay. And guess what's going to take its place?
Knowing where this conversation is headed, I'm going to guess a massive solar farm.
You got it.
Nice.
Xcel Energy, the utility that owns the plant, is teaming up with a renewable energy developer to build a huge solar and battery storage facility right on the site of the old coal plant. What? And get this, they're going to reuse a lot of the existing infrastructure, including the transmission lines.
Wow, that's great.
This not only makes the project more sustainable on reducing waste, but it also saves a ton of time and money.
It's a great example of how this transition can be a win-win for everyone involved. Right. The utility gets to replace an aging, polluting coal plant with a clean, modern energy facility. Yeah. Developer benefits from the cost savings of using existing infrastructure. Yeah. And we all benefit from cleaner air and a more sustainable energy system.
It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yeah.
A symbol of transformation and renewal.
That's a good way to put it.
And this project in Colorado is just one of many examples popping up all over the country.
Oh, cool.
In New Mexico, they're replacing a retiring coal plant. Okay. With a mix of solar, wind, and battery storage. Nice. In California, a developer is proposing a huge solar farm next to a natural gas plant that's nearing the end of its life.
It seems like this idea is really gaining traction. It's exciting to see how quickly it's moving from concept to reality.
And as we discussed earlier, these projects aren't just about replacing fossil fuels with cleaner energy sources. Right. They're also about revitalizing communities, creating jobs, boosting local economies, particularly in areas that have been hit hard by the decline of the coal industry.
That's such an important point.
Yeah.
The clean energy transition needs to be
yeah.
a just and equitable one.
Right.
Are there any examples
Yeah.
of projects that are particularly focused on ensuring those community benefits?
Definitely.
Okay, great.
One that stands out is a project in West Virginia, a state that's been a major coal-producing region for decades.
Right.
A company called Form Energy is building a factory to manufacture iron air batteries.
Okay.
A promising new technology for long-duration energy storage.
Wow.
And they're building this factory on the site of a former coal mine.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
They're taking a place that was once, a symbol of the fossil fuel era and transforming it into a center for clean energy innovation.
Yeah.
I love the symbolism of that.
It sends a powerful message. Yeah.
About the potential for renewal and transformation.
Right.
And it's not just symbolic. It's creating hundreds of good-paying jobs in a region that desperately needs them.
That's awesome.
This project is also seen as a model for how we can repurpose former coal mining sites for all sorts of new industries.
Yeah.
Manufacturing, agriculture, tourism.
Right.
The possibilities are endless.
It's a great example of how this transition can create opportunities for economic diversification and revitalization in communities that have often been overlooked.
Right.
It gives me hope that we can create a clean energy future that benefits everyone.
It's inspiring to see how these projects are combining environmental sustainability with economic opportunity.
Right.
But let's be realistic for a moment.
Okay.
Not every project is going to be a perfect success story.
Well, of course not. We're going to encounter challenges and setbacks along the way.
In the last episode, we discussed some of those potential downsides and challenges.
Right.
Community pushback.
Yeah.
Regulatory hurdles. Technical complexities. Those are all real obstacles.
I'm wondering, are there any examples of projects?
Yeah, there are.
Unfortunately.
That have hit those roadblocks.
There's a proposed project in Arizona to build a large solar farm on land adjacent to a natural gas power plant.
Okay.
The idea was to leverage that existing interconnection infrastructure, creating a hybrid facility that could seamlessly integrate solar power into the grid.
Sounds like a smart idea.
It did.
What happened?
Well, initially the project was greeted with a lot of enthusiasm.
Okay.
But it ran into opposition from local residents who were concerned about
how the solar farm would change the visual landscape of their community.
The classic not in my backyard dilemma.
Exactly.
It's something a lot of renewable energy projects struggle with.
How did the developers respond to these concerns?
Yeah.
They tried to address the visual concerns by offering to plant trees and shrubs around the perimeter of the solar farm to screen it from view.
Right.
They also promised to use quieter construction equipment and to minimize disruption to the community as much as possible.
It sounds like they were making a genuine effort to be good neighbors.
Yeah.
Did it work?
Unfortunately, not entirely.
Oh, okay.
Some residents remained unconvinced.
Okay.
And the project ended up getting bogged down in local permitting disputes.
So even with good intentions and attempts to address community concerns, these projects can still run into roadblocks.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good reminder that clear communication, community engagement, and a willingness to find compromise are absolutely essential.
It's not enough to just assume that everyone will be on board with these projects just because they're good for the environment.
So what happened to the project in Arizona?
It's currently on hold while the developers continue to work through the permitting issues and try to address the community's concerns.
Right.
It's unclear whether they'll be able to find a solution that works for everyone.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that this transition won't always be easy or straightforward.
Right.
There will be bumps along the way.
Right.
And we need to be prepared to navigate those challenges in a thoughtful and respectful way.
It's a balancing act. We need to move quickly to address climate change. But we also need to make sure that this transition is done in a way that's fair and equitable for everyone involved.
And that sometimes means slowing down, having those difficult conversations, and being willing to compromise. But I do believe that in the long run, projects that are developed with community support are much more likely to be successful and deliver lasting benefits.
So I've seen some of the promising early successes of surplus interconnection, as well as some of the challenges that these projects can encounter.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on the long-term potential of this approach?
I truly believe this is more than just a fad. This idea is coming at the perfect time as the costs of renewables continue to drop and the urgency of the climate crisis becomes increasingly undeniable. What makes you so confident that this isn't just a passing trend?
Well, this idea isn't just about swapping out individual power plants. It's about using what we already have in a smarter, more efficient and more sustainable way. And it's about recognizing that we don't always need to start from scratch. We can build a cleaner, more resilient energy future by reimagining and repurposing the infrastructure that's already in place.
I love that. It's a shift in mindset, isn't it? We've become so accustomed to thinking that solutions to big problems require grand, expensive new projects. But sometimes the most elegant and effective solutions are right in front of us, just waiting to be rediscovered.
Exactly. It's about looking at the familiar with fresh eyes, and asking, how can we use this to create a better future? And that's why this surplus interconnection concept is so exciting. It represents a new way of thinking about the energy transition. It's about finding creative solutions that benefit everyone, not just a select few.
That's a great message to leave our listeners with.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into surplus interconnection.
Of course.
It's been a fascinating exploration of a truly innovative approach to building a cleaner and more sustainable energy future.
I hope our conversation has sparked some new ideas and inspired our listeners to think differently about the possibilities of the clean energy transition.
Remember, folks, the future is not something that just happens to us. It's something we create together.
I agree.
One innovative idea, one collaborative project, one thoughtful decision at a time.